Hey, my name's Ted, and today we're going to finish up installation of this EGT and oil temp gauge on my motorhome.
I'm working on the next project on my 3126B, which is installing an EGT gauge or a pyrometer. So I'm at the point where I've drilled and tapped the hole for the EGT probe. I figured I'd just talk a little bit about why I decided to put it where I did. So when you're installing an EGT probe, you're either trying to get the exhaust gas temperature out of the cylinder, or in the case of an engine like this, what you're really more concerned with is maybe the turbo inlet temperature. So Autometer tells you to try to put the probe about, I guess 2 or 3 inches from the turbo inlet is what I seem to recall them putting in there. If you take a look at how this manifold is cast, there's not a real super practical way to try to have the probe in a position where it's completely independent from each individual cylinder or a couple of cylinders worth of exhaust gases and actually looking at the turbo. I don't think the video shows it very well, but if you look at this collector area where each of the 2 groups of 3 cylinders then meet before they go into the turbo, this area over here is kind of indented. It's trying to make the air flow into the turbo. You got basically 2 pipes that have a 90 degree. And when I took a look at this, I was kind of afraid that if I tried to drill into this area, for one, it would be really hard to access, especially when you're trying to tap, and that I might also end up in a position where I don't have quite enough depth to get the probe in where I need it. So it looked like Caterpillar had more intended this area for a probe location, and I don't know, maybe they did. But so I decided to just drill and tap right here. So what I like to do when I'm drilling and tapping into especially something like an exhaust manifold, where you want to try to keep the little shavings out of the turbo, at least as much as possible. Really, they should just blow through, but you want to keep them out if you can. So I started with a 1/8 inch, then a 3/16 inch bit, and before putting them in, I just coat them in grease to hopefully pick up the shavings that would otherwise drop in. I like to buy tap kits that have both the drill bit as well as the tap, so put that in, went through, and then I just tapped it. And so next is going to be putting in the little adapter and then the probe. One of the things also that I wanted to mention is that, so here's your probe. So this probe actually sticks in a good way. What you really want to do ideally is have this tip be in the center of the exhaust stream. That's going to get you the best reading. So that was another reason why I was sort of thinking that this was a better location, that I'd be able to get this in. So let's go ahead now and put in the little coupler and put the probe in. All right, that's all in now. So one of the things is that these EGT probes have a limited range that you can use them with. So if you're doing something like a bus or a diesel pusher kind of setup like what is in this RV, Autometer makes a little extender box that will let you run the wires the 40 feet or however long you're going up to the front where you actually need the gauge. So we're going to have to install that box, install the gauge up front. We're going to do the oil temp gauge at the same time, since I'm adding an oil temperature probe as well with this, and then run the 40 feet worth of wires front to back. All right, let's get to that. Okay, got the probe in, and then the next part is connecting the extension wires. So I'll show you what I did here. The gauge itself comes with a harness that includes the same material wires of the correct length. Like I mentioned, I'm using an extension harness. When you do the extension or use the extension box, you still need to use these same wires, because the box is using that to calculate the correct temperature, and then it sends the output to the gauge. Autometer says that the extension box has to be mounted inside. It's not designed to be mounted in the area of the engine. So where I put it, and this works on my Endeavor, but it might work on, same idea probably works on other RVs as well. So hard to tell, but next to the bed there's these 2 drawers, and we have these out because we're doing the more significant remodel right now. But this area has this nice little open kind of secret compartment underneath, and so that's a perfect spot to mount this box that's out of the way. And I just drilled a hole. Let's see if you can see it. Just drilled a hole in the wall right there that goes into the engine bay. I'm gonna obviously be sealing that up properly before when I'm all done. But so I've got that run through now and connected to the box. So next I'm gonna need to run power, ground, and the output cables. I bought this shielded wire that's got four wires plus a ground on it, and it's 50 feet long, so I'm going to be using this to run signals from the front to the back, as well as power for the extender module for the EGT gauge. And then when you're doing this, first off, make sure that you write down somewhere what the wires are going to be, because that way you won't forget and get them crossed. So for the EGT, for the extender module, you've got this shunt here, and you got the black and the orange, which correspond to the red and the yellow that the sender would normally have. But real thing is keeping these black and orange wires straight. So this wire did not have orange on it, but it did have yellow. So I just made black and orange yellow. Blue for the oil temp, and then red for power. And I wrote all that down here so I don't forget it. And so what I've gone through now and done is I've gotten all of the wires kind of just hooked up. I ran this the shielded wire down through the hole that I drilled in the dash. You can see all of it I've got under here. Got to drill the hole to then run it through and underneath the RV. And then I already had a ground set up. I used the same ground that I used for the backlights because no reason why not to. And then I ran a power wire down through and underneath. And let's see if I can show you what I did here. So back here is the ignition switch. So I took my multimeter and figured out one of the wires that was positive in the on position, and then no voltage and off, and then I just spliced into that and added in just a fusible link with a 5-amp fuse in there. That way I don't have to, that way if for some reason there's a short in these gauges, have a problem, it'll blow that fuse and not blow the whole fuse for the ignition and shut down my engine. Good practice to do. Okay, obviously that's not going to be how I'm going to keep it permanently, but we've got power, we've got ground. Let's turn this on, see if we see anything. Yeah, I would say that was something. If you looked at the oil temp, it went up just a little bit, and then the EGT gauge went up from 0 to about 100 or so. So that, and then let's see, let's just do that again. Yeah, so those are working correctly. So now what I can do is I can stuff these wires down through and get that gauge pod screwed onto the dashboard. Okay, we're back here. It's a beautiful day to work outside, so we're going to finish up the wiring. You can see that what I've already done is I've run the wire from the gauge down behind the pedals. I looked under the RV to find where would be a good location to route the hole, drill the hole. So I routed that through. I am going to put some, I am going to put a grommet or some rubber around it, silicone something to seal up the hole and try to prevent chafing. And then I ran it down the frame rail underneath. So, all right, so now we're back here in the back of the RV. So remember I put a diagram on the paper here to let me know which color wire did what function. So just gotta strip the wires and then plug them into the extension module here. All right, I got my wiring all set up. So everything's run from the front of the RV back through here, up on the driver's side of the engine. And then what I've got going is I've got the wires passing through that hole I drilled, and they're a bit of a mess, but then they're all hooked up to the extender box. One thing to note is that with the oil temp probe on the oil pan, and then having this nice shielded wire that I was using from the front to the back, what I decided to do was basically run that 4-wire bundle up here, and then what I did was I crimped on another wire that I then ran back and ran down. So hopefully that part works and doesn't end up adding any issues that would give me a false reading. So I think we're ready. Let's go ahead, start it, see if it works. Okay, moment of truth. Let's see if it's warm enough that I need to wait for it to start. Nope, good, all right. Well, I shut off the RV to finish this up because the buzzer was going to say that the jacks were down because I still have this thing jacked up and I'm not ready to drive it yet. But I didn't want that to get in the way. So from what I can tell, everything's worked the first time. Got exhaust gas temperature and the gauge seems to be working. Oil temperature, hard to say for certain, I guess, because I didn't get it running long enough to get the oil temperature up, and reality is unless you're driving it, it's pretty hard to do that. So that one I'll have to hold off on and see if that's working correctly when I drive it, but I feel pretty confident that that one should be working. So all in all, really not too bad of a job to do, and this will definitely help me to keep a better eye on my engine, and also as I make some changes that I have planned, which I'll do some videos on in the future, it'll help me to see if those changes have done anything to help EGT go down when I do them. So definitely a worthwhile upgrade, not too difficult. Hope you found this informative and useful. If you liked it, don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave any questions in the comments down below. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.